Hello everyone, and today we're going to take our factory intake for our 2020 GT Mustang and we're going to be changing out to this beautiful aftermarket Corsa intake system. Now we're going to be also doing a little extra added bonus as far as performing tests because we're going to see how this compares to our factory setup. So let's get started. Now before we start switching out parts, we need to go ahead and perform a Dyno Run just to get a baseline of how much horsepower and torque our factory Mustang provides. And we're doing this for two reasons. One, I am curious to see what this Mustang runs. And two, if you go to the Corsa website, they say this intake can give you an additional 20 horsepower and 11 foot-pounds of torque, and that's without a tune. So we're going to go ahead and put that to the test and see how accurate that statement is. And after doing a few runs, it looks like we're able to achieve 430 horsepower and about 418 foot-pounds of torque. So that's pretty good for a factory Mustang. So now we can go ahead and get to work. Let's go ahead and set up our prop rod. Now you may have noticed I do have hood struts, but I still have to put the prop rod up because I got to go ahead and disconnect this one hood strut. So I'm going to go ahead and pry that off. And there we go. And I'll see about setting that aside. And the reason I had to disconnect that is so I can go ahead and remove the battery cover. Now if you don't have hood struts, you're good to go. So let's go ahead and take off our 3 retaining clips. Very nice. Set those aside. And then we'll go ahead and lift up our battery cover. And come on. There we go. And then lift right out. Now we can go ahead and take our 10mm socket and socket wrench, and let's go ahead and remove the battery terminals. We'll go ahead and start with the negative side, of course. Go ahead and unscrew that one nut. There we go. Lift the negative lead off. Go ahead and set that aside. Put the net back on so we don't lose it, and then we'll go ahead and do the positive side. Now I'm doing the positive side as well because I have to lift up just a little bit just to get my strut tower brace off. And of course we got to come over and go ahead and take our strut tower covers off. And I'll go ahead and take off both sides because we're going to have to anyway. And then we'll grab our 15mm socket and impact driver. Let's go ahead and take off all 4 nuts for that strut tower brace. So there's 1, there's 2, and then we'll make our way to the passenger side. Let's go ahead and remove that one cap. There we go. And now we have a little better access there. Let's go ahead and get nut number 3. And I'm trying to do this without dropping it. And let's get number 4. And there we go. And then I'll very, very gently try to lift this up without hitting any of the engine cover. And, whew, that was close. And now let's go ahead and take off our engine cover. Now mine's custom, so I'm going to go ahead and have to take off my old cap first. Set that aside, and I'll go ahead and take a trim removal tool. Now for some of you who may have the factory cover, you're just going to need a 10mm socket and socket wrench and a trim removal tool just to pop yours off, but it's pretty much just as easy. So we'll go ahead and shimmy that one out and go ahead and set that aside. So now let's go ahead and pick up the camera, give us a little better angle. We're going to start by disconnecting our mass airflow sensor. So there's a little red tab and we just got to pull outward. Just like that. And then we go ahead and change our angle again and go ahead and pull the connector all the way out. And then we'll go ahead and set that aside. And since we're over here, let's go ahead and take that retaining clip off our airbox. So I'll take my trim removal tool and just pry that right out. Pretty easy. And now let's go ahead and take our small screwdriver and let's go ahead and take off our small breather hose. So we have this little retaining clip right here and it's plastic, so you got to be careful. And I'm going to go ahead and push that inward using a flathead screwdriver, and it's kind of a tiny one. So I'm trying to be very gentle and push downward. And then we'll go and get the other side. And it lifts right up. It doesn't come all the way out. It just lifts up slightly. There we go. Just like that. And now we can go ahead and kind of wiggle that hose all the way out. And it does require a little bit of oomph. And there we go. So now let's go to the other side of the air duct and remove the larger breather hose. Now this one I'm going to go ahead and take off. I'm going to show you what I did. So that pops off pretty much just as easy. And I'll show you what we did. Let me bring the camera around. And you see that little blue clip on the inside? All I did was press on it so it kind of opens it up a little bit. And that detaches it. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our 7mm socket and socket wrench. And let's go ahead and loosen up the clamp so we can go ahead and remove the duct from the throttle body. And it's pretty simple. Once you loosen it up, all you got to do is turn that clamp slightly clockwise. And come on. There we go. Had to break it loose. And then we'll go ahead and pull that duct right from the throttle body. Comes off pretty easy. Just a little bit of wiggle. And that was pretty easy. Now we need to go ahead and disconnect the other side. So all I got to do is unlock these clips. And then go ahead and lift it right out. And almost at a slight angle right in that one little spot. And there we go. And let's go ahead and take our air filter as well. Don't necessarily have to, but I'm just kind of curious. And it looks pretty rough. I guess we kind of had a dusty winter. But since we're over here, let's go ahead and zoom in so we can go ahead and remove that one little bolt. And all you need is a 10mm socket and socket wrench. And that just comes right out. Now it does have quite a few threads, so just bear with it. And there we go. And we're going to go ahead and set that aside because we're going to have to reuse that one. And now we can remove the rest of the airbox. So all you have to do is lift upward and push away from you. And there we go. And right next to the airbox was that mass airflow sensor retaining clip. There's another one. Let's go ahead and remove that one as well, just to give us more slack later on. And of course, to make room, we're also going to have to remove our sound tube. Now, I did this already in a previous video, which I'll leave a link at the very top. And you're going to need a 10mm socket and a trim removal tool. It can be a bear to take off, but it's one of those, if you have the right tools, that's not too bad. Also, this kit does come with everything you need to go ahead and put a plug on the firewall, and it's going to look something like that. And now we can go back to our factory air duct. Now I'm putting a mark at the very top of that mass airflow sensor just as a reference. And then we'll grab our T20 Torx, and let's go and remove this. And it's only 2 screws. So we'll go ahead and loosen this one up. Give it a few turns. And come on. So there's one. Set that aside. Get the next one. Now you're not going to be reusing these because it comes with separate ones, but it's nice to have. And there's 2. And this slides right out. And I'm being very gentle with this because you do not want to damage the sensor. And it does have a gasket on there, but we're going to leave it on there for now because we'll take it off later. Next, let's go ahead and remove this bushing and grommet. So I'll take a trim removal tool. And we'll get the bushing out first. That was pretty easy. And the grommet, that may actually require a little bit of force. Let's see if I can push it right out. So I'm going to go from the bottom and just give it a nice little push. Come on. While prying it. And there we go. Almost there. Very nice. So those 2 pieces, we got to make sure they're intact because we're going to reuse these. And since I didn't do any preparations off camera, let's go ahead and remove this lid. So we're going to need a Phillips screwdriver, and let's go ahead and take off all these screws. So there's 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to very gently set that aside. I don't want to scratch it. And inside is our beautiful filter. So now we have our housing, and that's where that grommet goes, right in that little hole at the bottom. And we'll go ahead and flip it over, and you can see the inside. Yep, looks pretty good, looks pretty clean. So let's go ahead and reinstall that bushing and grommet. And we'll start with the grommet first. I went ahead and pushed on the inside, and I went ahead and now I'm prying it from the outside. I want to make sure it fits in there beautifully without damaging it. And working my way around. Almost there. And there we go. So that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and install our metal bushing. And same thing, all you gotta do is press that right in. That one's pretty easy. And there we go. And that's what we're looking for. I'll go ahead and bring the camera in, that way you can see what I see. And since the new airbox is ready to be installed, let's go ahead and throw it in. So I want to go ahead and start finagling it because there is a little connection towards the grill that's got to line up with. So I'm going to line that up and then press downward. And you might have to give it a little love tap. There we go. And we'll go ahead and line up that screw with that hole. And start by finger tightening it. Then I'll take my 10mm socket and socket wrench, and we'll go ahead and snug this up. And it shouldn't be too tight, it should be just nice and snug. Very nice. And now focusing in on our opening of our box, we need to go ahead and install our bulb seal trim. Now it's not very difficult at all. All you have to do is go ahead and line it up and just work your way around. It is a tight fit, so just take your time. And I want to go ahead and start the seam at the bottom, that way you don't really see it. Work my way around. I'm sorry that I'm in the way of the camera, I do apologize. And go ahead and start pressing it in. Make sure everything's nice and snug. Nice perfect circle. And I'll go ahead and take out my filter as well. I want to go ahead and see how that fits. Go ahead and take our clamp off. And let's go ahead and see if we can get that right in there. And it does take a little bit of finagling. It is a tight fit. Alright, so that's pretty good. So it looks like it's going to look pretty nice. And now moving back to our new air duct, let's go ahead and install our mass airflow sensor. So since this is a plastic one, I am going to have to remove the original gasket. So this one just peels right up. Now apparently on the carbon fiber one, you do need to keep this gasket on there, but on this one you do not. And we'll put the new gasket on there, and it should line up. You see the holes line up. Looks pretty good. And I'll go ahead and install that right in the same spot. And then I'll go ahead and install it with our new screws. And this requires a Phillips screwdriver, not a Torx bit. And we're going to go ahead and work them back and forth because you don't want to over tighten these. So we'll start with the top one, get it nice and snug. Very nice. Do the bottom one. And I'll work back and forth and just till I got a nice fit. And one more time. And that fits pretty good. So now let's go ahead and flip over the duct, and you're going to see 2 holes. You're going to see one at the elbow and one at the bottom. We'll start with the bottom one first, and that requires the smaller fitting. Now these threads are kind of fine, so take your time. We don't want to cross thread it. And I want to start by just go ahead and start feeding this by hand. Now be very careful not to over tighten these. These will break, I guarantee it, if you go too rough. And we'll go ahead and start with a 9/16 wrench. Now anytime you feel any tension or it looks remotely flush, stop. So that one came out pretty good. Now let's go ahead and do the one on the elbow. Same thing, I want to start by finger tightening it. Now this one requires a 13/16 wrench, but it does not require a lot of torque at all. So again, if it feels any tension, stop. And that's about flush. And the last bit we need to install is our silicone reducer. So go ahead and fit that at the very top. It does require a little bit of push, so just bear with it. Alright, now we can go ahead and take our hose clamp. Now these have different sizes and they're labeled on there. Let's see if I can focus it in. Come on. And it's the glare, it's killing me. There we go. So this one is a 64. This is the one you're going to put on your reducer first. So we'll go ahead and slide that right on. And line it up. Looks pretty good. Then we'll take an 8mm socket and socket wrench and go ahead and snug it up. Alright, that feels pretty good. So now we can work our way back to the vehicle, and let's go ahead and install our number 56 hose clamp, and it's going to go on the other side of the reducer. Let's go ahead and throw the other hose clamp on there as well, just so we don't forget it. And let's go ahead and install this new duct right on the throttle body. So I'll try to get everything out of the way. And it is going to be a snug fit, so kind of work around everything. Alright, and then all we got to do is push this new duct right on that throttle body. And once it's there, we'll go ahead and snug up that one hose clamp. I'm not going to tighten it, I'm just going to go ahead and snug it up just a little bit. And we'll go ahead and install our air filter on the other side of that duct. And again, it's a little bit of tight fit in here, so bear with it. And we'll go ahead and snug up that hose clamp as well. And again, this is all of an 8mm socket and a socket wrench. And that one's almost snug. Okay, that feels pretty good. And we're going to go ahead and back and snug up all these hose clamps and make sure they're all good and tight. Yep, looks like everything's pretty good. So now let's go ahead and install our lid. So go ahead and take off that beautiful plastic. And look at that. I love how they have shine after every time you take plastic off these things. And then we'll go ahead and install all of our screws. Now don't over tighten these, just go ahead and start by finger tightening them. So there's number 3, number 4, 5, and 6. And we'll go ahead and go back over them with a Phillips screwdriver and just make sure they're snug. Do not over tighten it, it will crack your lid. And now we can go ahead and reconnect our mass airflow sensor. So it presses right in, and all you have to do is push that red tab inward. So now let's work our way to the other side of the air duct and install our breather hoses. And we'll go ahead and start with the smaller one first. And it is a little bit of a tight area, so you kind of have to finagle it. And we'll at least get it started. There we go. And then we go ahead and pull on it until it's almost on, and then press that black tab in, and then pull a little bit more, and it should feel it snap right in. And we'll do the same thing on the other side with the larger breather hose, and this one snaps right in, so you just got to go ahead and pull on it. And there we go. Snapped right in, very snug. So earlier, after I installed the new Airbox, I went ahead and did test fit my engine cover just to see how it fits. And unfortunately, there is a little rubbing on the side. Now for those of you who have the factory engine cover, you shouldn't have to worry about this, but unfortunately mine's a little bit of a unique design, so I'm going to have to trim a little bit of it off. So I made a few light marks while it's under the hood, and then went ahead and took it off, and now it can give me a solid line to follow. So it's just kind of give me a guide, and that's why I need to lob off. So I'll go ahead and tape off the edges, that way I don't accidentally scratch anything. Take my oscillating tool. There's one cut there, and then we'll go do the long cut. And right there. Very nice. And now we can do a little bit of cleanup with our rotary tool. And it doesn't look too shabby at all. Nice clean cut. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and reinstall it. Now my engine cover is pretty straightforward. It just installs by using those 4 holes on the intake. However, if you have the factory one, you have to do the same thing while installing those 2 nuts you took off from earlier. So once I line everything up, I just go ahead and press it down, and then I reinstall my oil cap. And now we can install our strut tower brace. And I'm going to start with the battery side just to make sure I don't scratch anything. Alright, that dropped right in, and I'll drop in the driver's side. And now let's go ahead and install our 4 nuts. And so I'm going to use my impact driver and 15mm socket. And when these are tightened down, we want to make sure they're torqued to 41 foot-pounds. And now let's go ahead and reinstall our battery terminal. So we'll start the positive side first. Use our 10mm socket and socket wrench. And give that a few turns. Make sure that's nice and snug. And that felt pretty good. Go ahead and reinstall that one cap. And now we can work our way to the negative side and reinstall that one lead. So get that in place, get that one nut. Screw it all the way down. Take that same 10mm socket and socket wrench and snug it up. And there we go, good and tight. Now let's go ahead and install our battery cover. And same thing as earlier, just pretty much slides right in. So let's see if I can get it right in place. Very nice. And now let's go ahead and put those 3 retaining clips back in. So you just got to push them and then twist them in like a screw. And there's number 3. And now I'll go ahead and reinstall my hood strut as well. Very nice. And we'll go ahead and reinstall our covers. And now we can go ahead and return to the shop and get another dyno test. So these are the results that we started with. 430 horsepower, about 418 foot-pounds of torque. So we went ahead and put that as your before. And here's our after results. About 444 horsepower and about 423 foot-pounds of torque. So that's not too bad. So let's go ahead and compare them side by side. We'll go ahead and bring them in together. Now go ahead and zoom in. And this is the before and after on one sheet. So you can see where we have about 430 at the beginning and then about 444 afterwards, giving us a difference about 14 horsepower increase and about 5 foot-pounds of torque. So not too shabby, but it's not exactly up to the amount they claim, but it is a slight performance increase. Now I am aware a tune is highly recommended at this point, but I just wanted to test out what they claimed on their website. But overall I'm still happy with the results and I am happy of how this looks under the hood. This looks really nice. Well, if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe.